Hey, Mangus here, the toy and comic book collector. So here's a look at the Zoids toy line in the UK and US between 1982 and 1990, or what I like to think of as the golden era of Zoids. Now the Zoids toy line was created by TAKARA Tomy in 1982 and considered by many, with myself included, to be one of the greatest toy lines to have ever existed. It all started for me back in the late 80s when my good friend Russell Older got a Zoidzilla for Christmas. To say I was jealous is ridiculous. I was bloody livid. There was just something really cool about a walking robot dinosaur and I just had to have one. So 20 years went by and on a trip to the London Science Museum I saw that same Zoidzilla which relit my desires and started my whole toy collecting addiction. You could kind of say it was like a gateway drug really. In early 1982, TAKARA Tomy started distributing a series of clockwork driven model kits that didn't need any glue to assemble called Meabonika. These were technically not Zoids but counted by collectors as the first incarnation and consisted of 3 models that would later be re-released as the first initial Zoids: Garius, Elephantus and Glidola. The Meabonika line wasn't very successful in Japan and then quickly dropped by Tomy. But at the same time, Tomy had been selling the Meabonika line in the US and Europe under the name Zoids. Now this line was far more successful than its Japanese counterpart, which led to them reintroducing the line back in Japan under the new name. The first run of Zoids in 1983 is commonly referred to as the OARs, or Original American Releases, consisting of the 3 original Meabonikas and 2 others, Spider Zoid and Aqua Zoid. With the OAR Zoids doing well, 2 more units would be introduced to the US and European markets, but not in their home territory of Japan. These were the Power Zoids, Tank and Serpent, which in 1983 were a pivotal while risky moment for the Zoids line, with many differences from the original 5 OARs that would be repeated and carried through for the next 25 years. The first big change was the use of batteries instead of the seemingly archaic wind-up motors in the initial Meabonika line. And secondly, and perhaps the biggest change of all, would be the reference to Zoids now being war machines. As evident in the artwork on the back of the boxes, Zoids were no longer cute dime store trinkets, but full-on combat machines looking for a bar brawl. The thing is, around the same time TAKARA Tomy had licensed their Diaclone line to Hasbro for sale in the US as Transformers. They must have seen how Hasbro packaged and marketed the Transformers into 2 warring factions, the Decepticons and the Autobots, which was, as you know, hugely successful and must have had a major influence on the guys at Zoids, because they in turn split their toy line into 2 sides, the evil Red Mutants and the good Blue Guardians, who actually later became the Xenobus Empire and the Helic Republic. No prizes for guessing where they got that from. The box art of these Power Zoids remained very similar to that of the OARs, with a stark mountain landscape in the background contrasted with the fully built Zoid in the foreground. The instruction manuals were typically a fold-out sheet, and the assembly not being too complex but felt more elaborate than the earlier versions, and might have had something to do with the battery-powered motor that now made the toys feel more solid and complex. Tank is more of an esoteric Zoid, taking on a vehicle-like appearance. Well aware of the growing trend in transforming robots, it seems as if the designers wanted to get in on the action, and instead of the sleeker lines of Serpent, Tank is very much a utility bot, with his boxed shape and blade-style wheels, almost like an all-terrain vehicle on crack. Tank even had wings and a front cannon just for good measure. Looking back, I think it's fair to say that the Power Zoids were extremely underrated in the overall Zoids toy line. They were truly a benchmark and hold so many clues as to what the toys were to later become. Now here's where things get good.
Robo Strux.
Now you can construct what may be the ultimate robot monsters.
Robo Strux.
Each sold separately, batteries not included. Then you can unleash the power of Robo Strux.
Robo Strux.
But who could have known these robot monsters would be this incredibly powerful?
Robo Strux.
Only you can build them. Only you can control them. Or can you?
Robo Strux.
Robo Strux robot monsters are sold separately and ready to construct. New from Tomy.
In the US between 1985 and 1986, Tomy brought out the Robo Strux Zoids. All the Robo Strux Zoids were actually recolors of the original Japanese releases and came in the two distinct factions of red and blue, with the weapons either finished in silver for the Blue Guardians or gold for the Red Mutants, but with no tie-in to any battle storyline. Now these are probably the ones you remember playing with if you were a kid in the 80s in the US. The first wave consisted of 12 Zoids, with each team having 4 smaller wind-ups and 2 large battery-powered Zoids, including Battler, Brox, Creep, Reptex, Runner, Sectar, Spartax, and Stang for the wind-ups, and Brutox, Gordox, Raidox, and Terox for the battery-powered line. Now, sometime between the first and second release, a promotional unit was offered. Again, copying the design of its OJR origins, the no-name Zoid sported the Blue Guardian colour scheme and came in a plastic bag with no official box, and the instruction sheet retained the original copyright for 1981. The second wave of Robo Strux was released in 1986 and remains a bit of an enigma. It's unclear which pieces actually made an appearance in this run, but I can say for sure that Slither was to be part of it and belonging to the blue side, and the only Zoid that was actually recoloured and came with the official packaging. Being one of the hardest pieces to come by, Slither's instructions offer no further proof of which pieces were official second wave releases. Other pieces that could be considered include Stunner, Chomps and Badox. As you can see, the box art has a very different style to the previous maroon and yellow striped Robo Strux artwork. Adding more confusion to the mix is the fact that the first waves were repackaged into similar boxes. If you look at the back of the larger battery powered box, you'll see that these are actually repackaged OER Zoids. Now OER Zoids are the original European releases, and these included a total of 49 Zoids, and made up of variations of the Japanese releases. Names and factions along with the colours were changed, and a comic book backstory laid out the origins of their dueling Zoid armies. The OERs recognised Redhorn as the leader of the Red Mutants, and the mighty Zoidzilla as the leader of the opposing Blue Guardians. It wasn't until later that Krark the Prince of Darkness would actually be introduced into the storyline. The next two Zoids remain well mysterious, could be considered potentially legendary, the first of which being the Blue Deathsaurus, who appeared briefly in a television commercial but has never been seen in the wild since, while the second legendary Zoid, and a bit of a holy grail for any Zoid collector, is the Red Ultrasaurus. Now this version of Ultrasaurus was to be completely finished in classic Red Mutant Red, with rumours spreading that people had seen it in toy catalogues, and some even claiming to have seen it on the shelves back in the day. Actually, a few years back, a Red Ultrasaurus came up for auction on eBay, and since then there has supposedly been the odd sighting here and there. Now, I'm not sure why, but in 1990, after 7 years, Tommy decided to cease production of the Zoids line, marking the end to some of the most memorable toys from my childhood, and even sparked my toy collecting to this day. They did reboot the franchise in 1999, and there was an animated series that did quite well in the States, but that's another story for another YouTube channel.